John, we live in an amazing community. At a population of 460,000 people, Greater Victoria is one of Canada's most beautiful, most internationally focused, best places to live in the country. The challenge we have in this region is the governance model that the province has chosen for its regional units. For reasons best known to themselves, the two largest cities in the province, of course, Greater Vancouver, Metro Vancouver, and Greater Victoria, are the only two cities in the province that don't have a mayor. They've got lots of mayors, but there's no spokesman. There's no election at a regional level for politicians to lay out a framework and a vision for two of the most beautiful, largest cities in the country. Now, how does that present itself at a practical level? Because we're the grumpy taxpayers of Greater Victoria. We're concerned about value for money. So we live in a community in which some years ago, View Royal decided to add another councillor. That brought the total number of elected officials for 460,000 people to an even 100. Of course, they're in a sovereign municipality, no reason why they can't. Several years ago, another large municipality decided it would create a new rec center in a way which would involve the private sector, and all that's fine. But partly because of, let us say, less than tight administration, years later, that municipality had to come up with $31 million in the space of a month or two to purchase a wonderful facility that wasn't financially viable, partly because of COVID. This is nobody's fault. Then we had the spectacle of the Victoria Council last year awarding itself pay increases for the next term, give them credit, based on a consultant's report in which the consultant said they couldn't make a recommendation because the consultant, couldn't rationalize why a city of 91 or 96,000 people, which is Victoria, could possibly find comparables in other provincial capitals in the country, like Edmonton with 1 million people. But of course, they went ahead and put in place a system in which the mayor's salary will be $166,000 after the next election. Give them full credit. And the councillors will, I think, be as high as $75,000. The mayor is not it's not a part-time job, but the councillors are. Meanwhile, in Sydney, in the recent past, the council has agreed to raise the salary of the mayor and the councillors with really no rationale, and to debate the matter on the basis of the comparables being other municipal councils, which in my view is an irrelevant consideration, since if they want to run in Colwood, let them go run in Colwood. The people of Colwood select their council. We've got ourselves into a bit of a pickle. Now, over the weekend, the government of Ontario bought an executive jet, the office of the premier. Well, Ontario, is a rather large province. But it only took about 3 days before backlash from the public forced the Premier of Ontario, the Premier's office, to sell the plane. It became known as the gravy plane in a weekend. So now, in the Foreign Service, I spent a number of years living in Tokyo and watching Japanese politics. And from the end of World War II, a political party, the Liberal Democratic Party, was in power continuously until the 90s. And they provided the political force, leadership, vision to rebuild that economy. And were unchallenged and had set in place a number of, let us say, the Japanese equivalent of bike lanes in Victoria. the product of special interest groups. And I was there when the LDP political influence shrank. And what had happened? The Tokyo Stock Exchange had gone to, I think, 38,000. And the feeling among people was that this is Japan. The market will never go down because there's so many institutional barriers to all that. Don't worry, just put your money in the market, you'll be fine. Well, inevitably, the economy caught up to the market and it crashed, cut in half. And the four large investment dealers began to compensate their major clients for the loss. Now, the way stocks are sold in Japan, not to the public, in those days it was door to door. They had the institutional clients, but people went door to door. And when they went door to door, they were selling shares to housewives for the most part. And it was great for the Japanese housewife. She'd take a little bit of money from her allowance, she put it in the market, and it always went up. When the LDP began to lose power in Japan was when Japanese housewives learned that their institutional clients had been compensated for a stock market loss, but they had not. What is the issue which will be, I'll use the Japanese phrase, the housewives' issue in this region? At what point do people decide that a neighborhood council shouldn't add an extra counselor because that costs money? At what point do people realize that if North Saanich has the highest uplift on commercial industrial land taxation in the province of British Columbia, and as you know only too well, 55% of everything manufactured in this region is manufactured there. I mean, brilliant companies, just absolutely global leaders. At what point do people say, well, wait a minute, I've got to, going through the airport, I've got to pay that level of tax? Why is that? When we compared using CFIB methodology, we compared the 161 municipalities in this province. That's quite a lot, by the way, for the number of people living in British Columbia. Of the 10 least friendly to business, and the CFIB methodology compares residential property tax rates to commercial industrial land. There's a few other elements, but essentially that's it. Of the 10 least business-friendly municipalities in the province, 7 are in the CRD. Why is that? It's the governance model. These municipalities are fragile. Needless to say, there's a whole major issue of the amount of tax dollars that are available to any municipality. But there's a reason that the CRD municipalities come out on top of being the least business friendly in the entire province, using that CFIB model. What will stop that? I mean, rhetorically, you've heard me say it, I say it in speeches. After the big earthquake, God forbid there is one, there won't be 18 fire chiefs. It'll be apparent that that system doesn't work. Well, as we spend, for good reason, billions of dollars reinforcing the physical structures in this region against an earthquake, why don't we spend a moment or two doing a stress test on the bureaucratic instruments that are in place? And recently, another example, a group of citizens in Central Saanich did an analysis of salaries paid to the 135, I think it is, employees of Central Saanich, and discovered that 35 of them earn more than $100,000 a year. That's what happens with fractured governance. If you added up the CAO salaries across the 13 municipalities, and by the way, we grumpy taxpayers are proposing to do just that, and to do what the folks in Central Saanich did, which is a deep dive into all the municipal salary structures. If you just took the 13 CAO salaries and benefits and whatnot, I'm guessing that you're going to have a higher cost to the taxpayer than the CAO for the city of Toronto with a population of 3.5 million. Just a guess. So as Mr. Ford gets used to having to go back and travel commercially, by the way, I think that that's an unfortunate decision because Ontario is a rather large province, but some issues catch the public. Well, we need to find the issue that will catch the public in this region because the situation facing taxpayers as each budget cycle goes through is getting more and more serious. There is no budget process in municipalities here. It's all kabuki theater. We deserve better.